More on this, Ruvi Ziegler is an Associate Professor of International Refugee Law at Reading University in the UK and joins us now. Ruvi, thank you very much indeed for your time. So let's start with the legal side of this then. The government itself accepts that they may well face hurdles in this new policy, both political and legal. I suppose the key question is, will this stand up in a court of law?
Yeah, well, thank you for having me, Aaron. So yes, this is quite remarkable. So the government, on the face of the bill, actually states that it is unable to say that the bill is compatible with the European Convention of Human Rights, to which the UK is a signatory. This very rarely happens. I think it hasn't happened actually for a couple of decades. And it's indicative, right? It's indicative that the government, in its own analysis, understand that the sort of measures they wish to introduce would breach certain obligations under that convention, potentially the subjection of people, if they were to be deported, to inhuman or degrading treatment or torture, or the restrictions on their liberty through the detention schemes, or indeed interventions with the right to family and private life. But even more so, given that, as your reporter has rightly indicated, most people who arrive on small boats actually claim asylum, as they have in previous years. And in fact, the data from the Refugee Council in the UK suggests that most qualify for asylum under the 1951 Refugee Convention, to which the UK is also a signatory. Then this legislation is going to ban people who are refugees within the meaning of international law from being recognized as such in the United Kingdom. On those two fronts, on the ECHR and on refugee law, this legislation seems to be really taking us one step too far into an almost inevitable conflict in the courts in the UK and potentially with the Strasbourg Court of Human Rights.
Well, exactly. And Rishi Sunak was asked in the press conference about that, essentially criminalizing asylum seekers. You'll not be surprised to hear that he dodged that question. And human rights campaigners will point out that policy announcements by themselves rarely stop asylum seekers and migrants trying to get to the UK, because having covered so many hurdles and got over those to get to somewhere like Calais, they're probably ready to just take one more risk to get to the UK, and it's one more that they'll accept rather than worrying about what happens to them when they arrive.
Yeah, and I think the most telling thing to look at would be the difference between the situation, for instance, from people now trying to arrive from Afghanistan and people who come to the UK from Ukraine. Nobody from Ukraine would have to get on a dinghy and try to cross from Calais to the UK, because there is a scheme that allows for a safe and legal route for them to come to the UK. But with Afghanistan, in 2022, only 22 people were able to use the so-called Afghanistan Relocation and Assistance Program to come to the UK. All other applications are still stuck in the system. And so it's hardly a surprise that 8,500 people of the people who crossed the channel in 2022 on small boats were actually Afghanis, because if there's no other way to reach safety in the United Kingdom, if there is no safe and legal route, and the government keeps saying they want to introduce some, but ultimately the only one that exists at the moment is for people coming from Ukraine. There is no safe and legal route for people from Iran or Iraq or Syria or Eritrea, which were four of the countries that were named by your reporter as 4 of the 5 top countries of people coming to the UK by small boats. And so in that sense, it is conceivable the government is going to try and make life even harder for those who cross by boats. It is conceivable that they will try to deter people from arriving, but unless there are different routes for people to get to the UK, I'm afraid that is unlikely to succeed.
Yeah, Ruvi, but the Conservatives clearly think this is a vote winner, an electoral campaign slogan, because we saw "Stop the Boats" in big, bold letters in front of Rishi Sunak when he did his press conference. But I wonder, do you think that's a risky strategy? Because if the numbers don't drop significantly, then that slogan could well come back to haunt him.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think there is an internal contradiction within what the Conservatives were saying even today in Parliament, because they were flouting the fact that they have brought into the UK 500,000 people from Hong Kong and Ukraine fundamentally, and very small numbers from elsewhere. They said that suggests we welcome people into the country, and at the same time, they seem to be pointing all public attention to a number of people who arrived last year who translate to less than 20 per UK parliamentary constituency. You are right, of course. Rishi Sunak, the Prime Minister, did set this as one of his 5 goals. And so arguably, by his own assessment, if come to next year, the numbers are not down, they're going to not be successful. What I fear will happen then is, assuming this gets challenged in courts, and especially if this gets stopped based on the European Convention of Human Rights, the next campaign, as it were, for the government will be to say, well, look, we tried, we got stopped by the ECHR, so we need to leave it. And I think we need to be prepared that very well might be the next legal and political battle.
Ruvi, we'll have to leave it there, and I didn't even get time to ask you how much of a factor Brexit is in all of this. So that's a conversation for another day. Ruvi Ziegler, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you, Aaron.